Now, let's focus on the upper end of the table, shall we? We're only 10 games into this season, but the race for Europe is looking like one for the ages. From 3rd down to 11th, there are only 4 points separating teams from finishing in those rich European places. For years, those spots have been dominated by the traditional Big Six, but of course, we have seen teams like Aston Villa break into that, Newcastle the season before. And if you look at how this season is panning out, currently you have Nottingham Forest in 3rd. Fulham are in 9th, just a few points off 5th place Arsenal, for example. So I keep saying it with the caveat, Cass, that this is still very early in the season. But is it conceivable that, and I'm not, you could obviously bring the Champions League places into this as well, but going down to at least 6th, 7th, you never know what will happen with 7th spot as well. Could we see any of the outsiders that I've just already meant, Forest, Fulham, could we see any of those potentially getting into Europe?
Well, I think there's a standout feature is how costly European football is, as in travel, performances, size of your squad, injuries that you suffer with so many different types of players. I think Forest have an advantage in that respect. They don't have European football. Yeah. So they can prepare every week with every game, not suffer the same amount of injuries as most teams, and also be fresh. And if you're tactically astute, which Forest are, I would say that gives them much more hope. I would never, I said at the start of the season, we've had this conversation numerous times about who was my surprise team. I said Forest at the start of the season, but it wasn't based on, I think they're going to make European football. I just thought they'd be a good side this year.
But they wouldn't be in the relegation fight.
They wouldn't be in the relegation fight. They'll be mid-table and above. I'm seeing them there now, but I do think the consequences that are shown for watching Aston Villa this week in European football and their form of late, I would add in, Arsenal got beat in the manner they did. Chelsea had a huge victory, easy game, a really easy game. Galatasaray for Spurs away in the Europa League is not for the game that Chelsea had. No. So there is and Chelsea's squad is enormous. It just is.
Well, it was an entirely different 11 they played against FC Noah. So,
exactly.
Yeah.
So that's not going to... So I suspect Chelsea will make it to the Champions League because I just think the size of their squad, being in the Europa League, the type of games they're going to play, they could probably breeze to the semi-final without any consequences of injuries or affecting their squad and that. So I could see Chelsea doing it. But there's a lot of chasing groups. You go down, Man United... not out of. If they get any form at all on 12 points, they're, within six points.
Hang on.
Okay, you're going to go Brentford as well.
Well, if you're picking out Man United on 12 points, Brentford...
You're not going to do it now. You're not going to do it.
Just ruin it for me. No, I understand. I'm not expecting that in any way. I'd be very happy mid-table. Yeah. But especially when you mentioned Man United, Ruben Amorim now coming in, and he'll have high hopes of obviously getting Manchester United into the picture for Europe, certainly top 4 if he can do that as well. It would be some amazing turnaround if he can do that with this Manchester United side, certainly. But it does make it more fascinating that we are... Look, Arsenal fans won't enjoy it.
Bournemouth and Fulham in there, it does.
But I was going to say Arsenal fans won't like it. Man City won't like it right now, that they're in this little dip in form. But it does make it more intriguing for everybody else that we might see a new team perhaps competing in Europe for the first time in a while, like with Forest case, for example. Yeah.
No, it wouldn't surprise me this year. I think you can quite clearly see the effects of European football and the amount of games that players are playing, and people talk all this about all the time, go on about, they don't play that much football. You put extra time in games as well and your squad's not that big. I'm talking extra time as in injury time as well, adding on. That's a 10% increase of football because most teams are getting to 8 and 10 minutes now. That's 10% more in football time. And some of the squads suffer. And I think it's made it a little bit tighter.
So if you think about the traditional Big Six, is there any one of those teams you look at and think they're in danger of maybe missing out altogether? I know maybe as the table stands, Manchester United are way off the pace, but we are expecting an upturn in form. It might not happen, but we are, just because of a new manager bounce. But is there any of those traditional Big Six that you think actually could miss out on Europe altogether with other?
I'm really interested to see how Arsenal do tomorrow at Chelsea. That is a really intriguing game for me because I would have gone Arsenal all day long from last season's form and, where they've grown as a club. I think Chelsea are favourites tomorrow. I think they can beat Arsenal.
But, you just pointed it out. They played in the Europa Conference League on Thursday.
Yeah, at home.
But it was a very different 11. Not the
team.
same 11 that will play against Arsenal. And Arsenal coming into this off the back of that defeat with what was his strongest side that he could put out. It's a very different makeup of two
absolutely.
squads.
Well, look at the two squads and go forward lines, okay? Chelsea have an abundance of forwards. Yeah. Whoever makes it, from Neto to Modric to Sancho to Jackson to Nkunku, Cole, Madueke. Then look at Arsenal's forward line. That is so... It's not even close. There are better players. I would say Saka's as good as anybody in the forward areas. But I wouldn't say that there's a big difference with Trossard, Havertz. Martinelli's off his game. He's struggling. I feel sorry for the lad, but he's not playing well. And I just look at it and think Chelsea's forward line is way better. Whoever they can put out, just generally. I know you can have one individual from each team, but if you said to me the forwards that Chelsea have got to use over the next coming months, a much better position.
Yeah, it's really intriguing, that game at Stamford Bridge, like you say. Do you think, and I know Liverpool going really well at this moment in time, but I keep coming back to Forest, who are going above and beyond what most people would have expected them to be doing right now. Are we getting closer to perhaps seeing another Leicester situation when it comes to the Premier League? No,
I don't think that at all.
We won't ever see that again?
I'd say ever. Of course we will see. There's always some 100-1 winner in the races that happened. There's always going to be someone. I don't know whether they quote 5,001, but that will happen again. It's not going to be this season. Forest, I think, are capable of making top 6. Do I think that they can get beyond that? No, I think it'd be a much bigger ask for them. But by the way, they're defensively really sound. So let's give credit. Forest have got a very good, complete team. And the lad Anderson's been in the papers talking this morning, leaving the club, and from Forest. And you can look at Morgan Gibbs-White, you can look at Elanga, Hudson-Odoi. Chris Wood is in the perfect storm. He's got the perfect players around him to, there's a lot good at Forest, but I don't think it's beyond them to get past top 6.
Okay. Yeah, defensive solidity.
No, I don't think they're... Sorry. They won't. They're higher than... I think they can make the top 6. I just don't see them in Champions League. No, I don't think that. I think that'd be a much bigger ask.
Yeah. Defensive solidity is been brilliant for Nottingham.
I don't give an inch Nottingham Forest.
7 goals conceded in 10 games. Yeah. It's the second best defence in the league behind Liverpool, who have conceded 1 fewer, which really goes to show how brilliant they have been, Nottingham Forest, this season.
On AM, on DAB, via the talkSPORT app and on your smart speaker. talkSPORT.